welcome back to the programme after various holidays. Guests in the studio have been away. One in particular is always away. You've noticed that, I'm sure. I've had a brief holiday, coming back refreshed, but I must admit having a brainstorm this week, trying to put together all the summer transfers and all the jigsaws and try and work out, for instance, the first game I'm doing on Saturday, Barnsley against Fulham, seeing about 7 players leaving each club, 7 arriving. It's chaotic every summer, and it is for these guys as well. It's, I suppose we could call it the Dom and Danny show this evening, or the Danny and Dom show. Dom Howson, Sheffield Wednesday writer for the Sheffield Star, making his, I don't know, 9th or 10th appearance. We benched him for a while. Is it?
Record appearance maker, I'll take that all day long.
He is the record appearance maker. And Danny Hall, who, well, actually, no disrespect to Danny, it would have been an invitation to your esteemed colleague James Shield, but you're here for a special reason. Apart from talking about Sheffield United and the prospects, this is news to everybody, I'm sure, isn't it?
It is. It is complete surprise. Yeah.
Danny's new book, We're Not Going to Wembley. And thank you for the copy, by the way.
A Sheffield Live exclusive.
Sheffield Live exclusive.
Yeah, no one else knows it exists.
It's out today.
It is today.
This very day.
Yeah.
And picking it up, I mean, the word that comes to mind is thick.
For the book.
Not
for
you.
The book.
Not
yeah,
you.
just for
thick.
sure.
It's very
Just
thick.
clarify.
Yeah, that must be. It's always a relief for a writer to actually see that and
to see it in real life
and to pick it up.
Definitely.
And the feeling is for what? I mean, it's your second, but the feeling is what?
Relief
Sheer
to see
relief.
it. Yeah, to see it actually in real life, because you spend so many weeks and months kind of seeing it in theory on a screen, and to actually get the printed copy in your hand is it's always a nice moment, a scary moment as well.
And despite the fact that we're all focused in on screens these days, you just can't beat that actual texture of having a book in your hand, can you?
Hopefully not.
Yeah. When's yours out then, Dom?
Still in work in progress, obviously. The Chancery years going on and on, aren't they? So it's an unfinished story, isn't it?
Four years now, something like that?
It is 4.5, probably, yeah.
4.5. Well, a guy that I had the pleasure and privilege of writing a book with, Lee Bullen, is currently in charge. And I sent him a text yesterday saying, "Come on, Bully, get those extra chapters written, so we can do it again." And just, because you just don't know which way it's going to go. Quite a story for him. Busy summer for both of you, because there's been plenty of movement, hasn't there?
For different reasons, I imagine, as well. Fair to say.
Never dull, is it, really? Any
dull.
summer. So, embargoes, managerial departures, players coming in, players going, transfer window to close next week. So, expecting a busy one, I think in the next 7 days.
Sometimes it can be too much.
Well, we'll find out, won't we, next Thursday? I think it's fair to say that Sheffield Wednesday could be quite active on deadline day, that's for sure.
Right, okay. A little bit of inside...
I'm going off the noises coming out of the camp and what Lee Bullen's saying, and of course, it remains to be seen whether Lee Bullen will still be the manager of Sheffield Wednesday come next week, but he's made it pretty clear that he thinks that Wednesday are short in 3 or 4 positions, and I think most people of a Wednesday persuasion would go along that defence, midfield, and maybe another sort of attacking midfielder or winger would add to what they've got. But I think the group that they have at the moment is one that, they go into Reading on Saturday, and I think that you look on paper at the start that they've got and that opening 6th round of games, and you think there are points to be had, and it would be nice to actually see Sheffield Wednesday get off to a strong start to a season. It's not something that we have seen for a very long time.
Even in the Carlos era, it didn't happen, did it? In the 2 seasons of the playoff appearance.
I actually think under Jos last year it was the best. I think from the first 6 games, I think it was 10 points, and I think that was the best of Dapon Chansiri's reign, 10 points from the first 6 games. But if you get 4 or 5 wins, and there's a genuine opportunity to do that, when you look at this set of fixtures, I expect Reading to be down near the bottom at the end of the season. Barnsley we don't know about. They've made, I think, 10 signings and they're coming up, so they've got momentum. I expect Barnsley to surprise a few teams, but you look at some of the other fixtures, Millwall away, Luton at home, QPR away. Wednesday have to be putting some points from the board early. They have to.
There's nothing that frightens you about the Championship this season when I look through it. Fulham may be, Fulham ought to be up there, but there was nothing really to really spark terror in you if you're Sheffield Wednesday with the quality and experience of player they've got.
Didn't we say the same about Stoke last year? And look at where they were. And
exactly.
And Swansea top half, but 12th, and they had Oliver McBurney, who I'm sure we're going to come on to in a bit, who was banging the goals in for them, and then they had Dan James, who's gone to Manchester United, and they had some top players in their team that they're having to try and replace now. But I do look at it and think it's hard to look past Cardiff. I definitely think with the Neil Warnock factor, they are certainties for me to be in the top 6. And you've got to look at the quality that Fulham have got with keeping hold of Mitrovic, Kearney, Session's still there, but they've got some top players at this level. They should score lots of goals, but then there's pressure on Scott Parker to deliver as well. It's his first real crack at management, and you've got like West Brom, big rebuilding job to be done there. Middlesbrough. There's definitely an opportunity. You think that there's going to be an outsider, there's going to be an underdog this year. And when you look at Sheffield Wednesday's, certainly their starting 11, if they can keep them fit and together, there's no reason for me why they can't be up there challenging. We saw in the second half of last season what this team is capable of. But, of course, there is the uncertainty of we don't know what direction they're going in until a manager is appointed and until full-time manager is appointed. But it's all been very difficult for Sheffield Wednesday with that uncertainty hanging over them and the disruption that it's created with Steve Bruce going less than 3 weeks before the start of the season, and they brought 3 players in working under the terms at the time of the soft transfer embargo, is well documented.
And signing for Steve Bruce as well.
Yeah, of course. So you feel some sympathy for those players as they were signing for Sheffield Wednesday on the belief that they were going to work for Steve Bruce. Yeah,
I feel sympathy for the players, the supporters, the chairman, and everybody over the Steve Bruce situation. Danny, let's bring you into this. I mean, you talked about your relief at seeing the book, and that it's out on the shelves. And you've got a signing, I believe, on the weekend.
Sunday, Meadowhall, Waterstones,
Waterstones at Meadowhall, book signing. You'll also be mighty relieved that there are no Sheffield derbies this coming season.
Just a bit, yeah.
Not just him.
No.
We all are. Two less supplement staff to do.
He's a real supporter, going back, aren't you?
That was one of the best things about promotion, apart from everything else. That one of the best parts of it was the fact that there'll be no derbies next year, because I can't think of anything worse, really.
It's like torture for you.
Yeah, so we just have to,
Okay, but it's been exciting. It's been a really exciting summer. I must admit, I'd got wind early in the summer that Chris Wilder was pretty confident that he would have a workable budget. So there's been no panic on that score. But even so, I think some Blades fans will be surprised at the extent of the spending, even though it's pretty small relatively for a Premier League club.
I just think
surprised?
Spending like that has never been known in Sheffield United. In my time following Sheffield United, I've never known money being spent like this. But still, at the same time, you look at Fulham last year, who had an unbelievable budget. It sounds simple, but it's how we spend it, isn't it?
Oh, they dismantled.
You have to get that was
they dismantled their promotion team.
I think that was a bit of the worry for not for people who knew what was going to happen, but almost that Chris would, or that the spirit, the team that got them here would be dismantled bit by bit. But I think keeping the core of it, he knows more about management than I'll ever know, but that to me seems like just a bit, that to me seems like
all of us put together.
Yeah, definitely. That seems like the ideal way to do it. He said straight away, I'm not going to take a sledgehammer to it, a wrecking ball to it, and I think that was a sigh of relief for everyone, really, because these players deserve the chance to be up there. You know, it's not a sentimental thing. They've earned the chance to prove themselves up there. You know, players like Ollie Norwood will finally get the chance after winning promotion 3
and
times.
Hopefully Mark Duffy as well, although he appears to have brought this situation on himself.
Yeah.
Well, I don't really know any more than I've read, but certainly Chris Wilder's right to make a stand. He's very firm. It doesn't matter who it is either.
Yeah.
You know, this is arguably this was their most creative player.
Yeah.
Of the past 3 seasons.
I did a piece about this where if it was to end like this, it'd be such a shame because. You know, Mark's been really good for Sheffield United since he came in, 3 seasons, 2 promotions. But also Sheffield United have been really good for him as well. You know, they've been a really good fit over the years. You know, Mark going back to places like Anfield as a big Liverpool fan, you know, that was held up as kind of the story of promotion, really, you know, coming from Prescott Cables. And I don't think they had any more publicity ever in their history since when they came up.
After the Ipswich game, Chris Wilder specifically mentioned that fairy tale prospect of Duffy. So for this to come along is surprising and, you know, disappointing.
Yeah.
You hope that they get together and resolve it.
Definitely,
you know, I think he played at Matlock a couple of nights ago.
He did, yeah. Along with a few other players as well. Ravel Morrison looked really good.
Yeah.
You know, you can only play what's in front of you, can't you? You know, people say it's only Matlock, but, you know, the little kind of touches and the little, you know, bits of play that you saw, you thought, this kid's really got something.
It's a tricky one, really, for Mark Duffy, looking from the outsider's point of view, because there's so many players now that Sheffield United have got who can play in his position, and he's obviously of an age where, if he wants to be playing regular football, is he going to get that at Sheffield United now that they've signed Ravel Morrison and that David McGoldrick, you've got Luke Freeman, you've got various players that Sheffield United have brought in. And so
you can see that, but I can see him playing a part last 20 minutes from the bench, if not starting, you know, in quite a number of games, and he's not going to get the opportunity to play in the Premier League, I believe, anywhere else than with the club he's at, is he?
You'd be amazed if he did. Like I say, I just hope it gets sorted out one way or another, because even if it is to end, just to end amicably, you know, and hopefully he gets a good club and, you know, everyone parts on good terms, hopefully. But
we live in the age of the undisclosed fee, which is hugely frustrating. I mean, we usually have an idea, a ballpark figure. I'm conservatively estimating that once the Ollie McBurney deal goes through, that Sheffield United will have spent over £40 million for sure this summer, and you never know, there might even be 1 or 2 more. So, I mean, that is, as you say, is a colossal figure, even if it's not for the Premier League generally.
Yeah, it's not bad for a £20 million budget that Chris was rumoured to have.
Is that right?
In a lot of places, that was the figure that I don't know where it came from, but that was the figure that he put on it. But like I say, I think he's used it really wisely as well. You know, it's not about just having the money; it's spending it in the right areas. You know, they're inherently stronger than the end of the
reminiscent,
season.
actually, of Huddersfield spending when they went up into the Premier League, of where Sheffield United had broken their transfer record. I think, was it four times now? And that's exactly what Huddersfield did, and it was around the similar sort of spending, around that 40-50 million mark. But you do look at it, and it just looks shrewd from the outside. It just, you know, you're thinking that they've picked some of the top Championship talent, and so if they're not quite good enough to make the grade, then they'd be more than good enough for the level that they go back in. But you know, we've seen how many over the last 3 years. How many times have we just seen that Chris Wilder and the recruitment strategy, the team that they have at Sheffield United.
It's the same strategy 2 leagues up from where he started, signing players who he could develop and who were good value for money. It's exactly the same principle. I've seen people scoff at it. Oh, they've not signed any Premier League talent, but this is a working formula.
It sounds so simple. I remember speaking to Mark incidentally for the book, and he was saying, you know, signing young, hungry players on the way up. It sounds so simple, but doing it, in theory, is difficult because nobody, if everyone did that, everyone would be, you know, as successful as United. Yeah, you think so? But I think people get seduced by names and all that kind of thing. Yeah,
they do, and I think they've missed a trick, because I firmly believe Sheffield United will stay up, and my column already written for next week says so. And I don't do that out of sentiment either. It's just a feeling, a gut feeling. I think the bigger challenge for them is going to be second year. You know, in second year you need to sign established, ready-made Premier League players, and if you don't, maybe as Huddersfield found out, you're on a slippery slope.
It's very true that. But you're going off past history, and you just look at it and you think Sheffield United, what they're doing on the recruitment side, that they get most deals spot on. They get them so right, and so you wouldn't back against them really. But I'm with you that I look at it and think that Sheffield United will definitely stay up this season. I think there are certainly 3 teams at very least who are worse than them. You know, and I could you look at Brighton. Do I see them finishing above Aston Villa? Yes, probably. Newcastle. You know, I think there's probably 4 or 5 teams. Norwich, another you know, they out of the teams who've gone up, they haven't spent big. You know, they seem to be
tried to nick Jordan Rhodes for nothing.
Yes,
to your story this week.
Exactly. There you go. You see.
I mean, I've been a critic of Wednesday overpricing players, apparently, but in terms of, I think 3 million for Rhodes is takeable. As a fee, but for nothing. What's going on there?
Cheeky, really. Very
I can think of a better word than Mickey.
Well, yeah, I've got to be polite, haven't I?
Yeah,
that's the beauty of recruitment, isn't it? Just pick players and say, "Oh, we'll take him for free." Yeah. Is that all right? And then people go.
Well, I suppose they might even say, well, we paid a big loan fee. He's got 2 years left on a very highly paid contract, which we take over. What more do you want us to pay? It's almost that sort of approach. But even so, you know, you're not going to.
Yeah, outrageous, really, isn't it? But that you know, you look at it and think that, I suppose on the one hand you've got Sheffield Wednesday looking at it and going that they get a very high earner off the wage bill, but even at the same time you'd be taking a huge hit on the transfer fee of 8 million.
And who's to say he's not going to, score goals for Sheffield Wednesday even now? Who's to say?
Exactly, but I do have reservations that I feel as if only time's going to tell. But Jordan Rhodes is 29 now, and it's been 3.5 years. It's been 3.5 years since we've seen the best of Jordan Rhodes. You're going back to the Huddersfield days. It's not happened for him. Well, Huddersfield Blackburn days, should I say? Since Middlesbrough, that transfer when. Aita Karanka brought him in, and then he's asking him to play up front on his own in some matches.
No sense.
No, it doesn't. Like when the best of Jordan Rhodes has always been when he's had a partner who's done a lot of the donkey work.
It was at Blackburn as well. I remember he was alongside a big. I forget who the guy was.
Gusted. Rudy Gusted. But you had the situation where even last week against Espanyol, so Jordan Rhodes is coming off the back of his pretty strong pre-season where he's got 3 goals, and then he's come on and he's looked lively to the extent of where he's had a couple of chances, but then there was a headed opportunity in the second half where just when he was absolutely in probably his pomp, he tucked it away all the time. Sort of 8 yards header, great cross from Adebayo, and he fluffed his lines in front of goal. Unfortunately, when he has had opportunities, I feel like we've seen too much of that really over the last couple of years. Of where even in a Wednesday shirt, we saw it in. The 17-18 season where he's been given runs in this team, but he's never taken the chances. He's not stepped up. So there's still time for Jordan Rhodes, but the problem is that there are 6 strikers at Sheffield Wednesday.
There's too many. I mean, we'll talk about the management and the runners and riders on the management in part 2. We'll save that. But the signings this summer: Julian Borner, Moses Adebayo, Kadeem Harris, and the 4th one who's on trial. I'll leave you to pronounce that.
The 4th one on trial?
There's somebody on trial, ex-AFC Wimbledon player.
Oh no, he's an under-23s player, so he's joining them. He's not going to. I can't pronounce his name.
I love the way
he's tried throwing that curveball in there. I was thinking, what, is Josh McEachran still with them? Or,
no. Osazi,
somebody I don't know. Yes.
God or something.
He's a defender from AFC
Sounds good.
Wimbledon. Yeah, we'll go with what you said, Alan. Yeah, that's absolutely great pronunciation.
But recruitment.
The other 3 players, I think the ones I'm particularly excited about Kadeem Harris. I think this is a proper chance for him to sort of, I think, really resurrect his career, because it's sort of stalled a little bit over the last couple of years at Cardiff. But in pre-season, in the matches I've seen, he's looked very lively. I think he's exactly what Wednesday needed: out wide, pace, trickery, bit of imagination, creativity. He's going to bring that, I think, to the table.
And 30 seconds to the break on Borner.
Borner, do you know what I've liked again? What I've seen, he seems to have adjusted very quickly to English football, and I expect all of the signings. I think they're going to start at Reading on Saturday. I think Borna will partner Tom Lees, and then Odebaggio will be at right back with Dominic Iorfa band, Kadeem Harris on the left in a 4-3-3.
Okay, well, we'll talk about Sheffield United's signings in more detail in part 2, and what sort of a lineup you'll predict, because that's hard. We'll also talk more about the book, and we'll talk about the runners and riders for the Wednesday job with Dom Howson and Danny Hall. Do rejoin us in 5. We'll see you then.